With its blend of dark humor and raw emotion set against the backdrop of war, MASH has been one of the most adored series on television for more than 50 years. From 1972 to 1983, the show made millions of people laugh and cry, but behind the scenes, something else was happening. At 89 years old, Alda has finally spoken out about his iconic role as Hawkeye Pierce. And the news he broke has shocked his legion of followers. Drama, emotional breakdowns, battles for control, and an almost ending moment that almost derailed the show. No, this isn't the MS*H from your childhood. After 50 years of secrecy, this is the reality behind the camera. From its inception in 1972, MASH was intended to be a collaborative project. However, tensions quickly began to rise. In the 4,777th Mobile Army Surgical Hospital, Alda, Wayne Rogers, and McLean Stevenson were supposed to be equal stars, each with a significant role to play. Taking place throughout the Korean War, the show was adapted from the 1970 film. It tackled heavy topics like friendship and conflict in a comedic way. Along with Wayne Rogers and McLean, Alda, Stevenson had a great working relationship for the first 3 seasons, but tensions rose when Alda's portrayal became more popular, which upended their equal status. Over time, what began as a carefree troupe of performers evolved into something more intricate. At first, things were going swimmingly. Being a part of something fresh and exciting filled them with excitement. There was nothing else like the show on television back then. It humorously tackled heavy subjects like friendship, death, and conflict. Everybody on set was aware they were creating history. Things began to shift, though, as the show's popularity grew. Hawkeye Pierce, played by Alda, quickly became a beloved figure. His kind personality, quick wit, and firm moral convictions were much beloved. He began to receive more lines and increasingly significant sequences from the writers. Because of this, several of the other performing artists, both Trapper John's Wayne Rogers and Colonel Blake's McLean Stevenson, began to feel alienated. They had inked deals anticipating equal stardom, but now Allen appeared to be taking center stage. Screen time wasn't the only source of friction. There was an emphasis on fame and fortune as well. Allen began to receive more money as his popularity grew. He gained even greater say over the program when he started writing and directing episodes. A number of key cast members would eventually be replaced as the show's true issues started to emerge. The 3rd season came to a close with the first big shakeup. The character of the charming but clumsy Colonel Henry Blake, played by McLean Stevenson, reached his breaking point. It seemed like Alda was getting all the spotlight while his character went undeveloped. Fans were taken aback by the way McLean's exit was handled. The authors chose to kill him off rather than simply having him move bases. The downing of Colonel Blake's plane on his return from Korea was one of the most moving moments in television history. At the episode's conclusion, the shocking news was revealed, leaving viewers speechless. Many viewers were unaware that Blake's other co-stars were kept in the dark about his mortality up until the moment of scene filming. You can tell it was true because of the astonishment and tears on their faces. In retrospect, Alda ranked this as a particularly trying time for the show. Even Wayne Rogers was dissatisfied with the current state of affairs. In his mind, Trapper John, the protagonist of his show, had to take a back seat so more Hawkeye stories could be told. Wayne made the decision to depart as well towards the conclusion of the 4th season. In contrast to McLean's character, Trapper John was simply reassigned, so viewers never saw him bid farewell to Hawkeye. If these two main characters had left, the show might have ended there. However, Alda and the writers were able to introduce new characters and produce fresh stories because of this. It was Mike Farrell who became B. One of Hawkeye's new roommates and greatest friends is Jay, Honeycutt. Colonel Potter was succeeded by Harry Morgan as commanding officer. In many ways, the show became better as a result of these modifications. An infusion of new life and fun was provided by the introduction of the new characters. On the other hand, they established Alan Alda as the showstopper. Unfortunately, not everyone was pleased by these developments, and a few members of the group still had issues with Alan's increasing power. Gary Burgos, the endearingly naive Radar O'Reilly, relationship with Alan Alda was one of the most contentious on set of MASH. It was also disclosed by Gary Burgos that managing his personal life alongside his busy professional schedule was incredibly stressful for him during that time, and he was also going through a divorce. However, he had his share of problems with other cast members as well. They didn't think he was easy to get along with or work with. Among the few actors to appear in both the film and television versions of MASH, Gary stands out. Because of this, he felt a unique affinity for the protagonist and the plot. However, Gary's difficulty in cooperating increased as the show progressed. Conflicts between characters weren't the only source of tension. While the episode was airing, Gary was under a lot of stress due to his ugly divorce, and even furious while filming. He frequently arrived late or fumbled through his lines. The other actors, particularly Alan, who was renowned for his professionalism and preparation, were irritated by this. It seemed like nobody was treating Gary's character with any dignity, either. Radar was intended to an integral aspect of the program, albeit his screen time gradually diminished. Gary reasoned that Alan and the authors were giving the doctors too much attention at the expense of the other characters. Alan and Gary were unable to tolerate being in the same room due to the extreme tension that had built up between them. When other members of the cast saw the issue, they also attempted to assist, but to no avail. Behind Alan's back, Gary would frequently vent his frustrations, claiming that he was overbearing and uninterested in hearing out others' opinions. In Season 7, things really heated up. It was evident in Gary's work that he was growing increasingly unhappy. His antics were becoming old news to the rest of the cast and crew. Lastly, Gary chose to depart from the program. In a moving episode, his character Radar was written out as he had to return home to tend to the family farm. Gary Burgos' departure was a relief for many on set, but it also demonstrated how challenging it could be to collaborate with Alan Alda when artistic disagreements emerged. Over the course of MASH's run, Alan Alda expanded his role beyond that of an actor. He soon found himself involved in every step of the creative process, from directing episodes to writing them. The producers were struck by Alan's knowledge and enthusiasm for the show, even though it was rare for a TV actor at the time. Alan was the writer behind several of the most iconic episodes of the show. He was very attached to the show's tone and content, especially when it came to dealing with heavy themes like friendship, death, and war. He had grand ambitions for MASH beyond its comedic nature. He hoped it would provoke serious contemplation of weighty topics. Conflicts arose between Alan and the other actors and writers due to his desire for creative control. He was accused by some of desiring to transform the show into the Alan Alda Show, rather than preserving it as cohesive ensemble. They were concerned that the lightheartedness and fun that made MASH unique would be diminished by his solemn demeanor. One well-known instance of this tension occurred in the episode Preventative Medicine. Farrell and Alda had an argument regarding the scripted decision their characters made, which caused tension behind the scenes. This happened in episode 22 of Season 7. A colonel in the episode repeatedly put his men in harm's way, leading to their deaths or injuries. B and Hawkeye J needed to make a decision on whether or not to save the lives of the colonel's men by performing an unneeded operation on him. Steve Buscemi, who portrayed J, I had doubts that he would agree to this proposal. Indeed, Mike was reluctant to be after reading the chart. J. Comply with this procedure. However, absolutely no tension existed. We all agreed that this argument would work wonderfully for the script after he and Alan argued it for a few minutes. The book, Preventative Medicine, provides it. Instead of escalating into a major confrontation, the performers were able to work together productively. They chose to incorporate their genuine conflict into the plot. Hawkeye and B were featured in the episode. J. Engaging in heated debates on morality, mirroring the real-life dynamics between Alan and Mike. This is an example of how Alan's ability to deal with creative differences improved throughout the course of the show. Rather than simply dictating to everyone, he picked up the skill of actively listening to others' suggestions and figuring out how to incorporate them into the performance. Some members of the cast had trouble adjusting to the new dynamic that Alan introduced to the show, and not everyone saw his impact positively. Alan Alda's incorporation of his own family into MASH was one of the most intriguing parts of his tenure there. The fact that Alan Alda and his father had an unusual competition and an occasionally strained relationship is no secret. With Robert's suggestion that the two doctors actually work hand in hand during the episode, Alda wrote and directed "Lend a Hand" as a means to collaborate with his father again. The late Robert Alda was another actor Alan had as a father. While he enjoyed a meteoric rise to fame in the 1940s and 1950s, his career had leveled out by the time MASH premiered. The dynamic between Alan and his dad was fraught. Despite their affection for one another, they were fiercely competitive in their own fields. Both men were deeply affected by the experience. Despite their own problems, they had to cooperate professionally. Both the television version and the family therapy version were effective. The episode became one of the most moving in the series thanks to Robert Alda's fantastic performance. Other relatives of Alan's family were also featured on the show. Arlene, his wife, made cameo appearances in multiple episodes, typically as nurses or in minor supporting parts. Even his own children got little roles every once in a while. While Alan put in countless hours on the program, this was his method of celebrating with his loved ones and keeping them close. It wasn't always well received by everyone on set when Alan brought his family to work with him. They thought it was unprofessional and revealed bias. Yet the vast majority of individuals recognized the challenges Alan faced in juggling his career and family responsibilities, especially while working on a popular television series. An additional layer to the intricate dynamics on the MASH set was the presence of family ties. Alan Alda did manage to make some genuine, long-lasting friends while he was on MASH, despite the many challenges he faced. The most effective of these was with Mike Farrell, who became a regular in Season 4 as B. J. Honeycutt. When it came to life and politics, Mike and Alan were very much alike. Both of them were extremely concerned about societal concerns and hoped to utilize their celebrity to effect positive change. Off-screen, they bonded over their common goal of having a positive impact. Their friendship had its ups and downs. Regarding the show's theme and the behavior their characters should exhibit, they held divergent opinions. Still, they figured out how to value one another's perspectives and, in order to collaborate and produce greater results than they could have achieved individually. Even when MASH finished, this bond persisted. Mike and Alan were still very good friends and worked together on a lot of projects. Their frequent appearances together at conventions and MASH reunions demonstrate that their friendship is still going strong. Several other cast members were also close with Alan. The character of Major Houlihan was performed by the ever-professional Loretta Swit. Even when things were tough, Jamie Farr's Klinger brought joy and fun to the set. Christopher William, who performed. Everyone was treated with kindness and gentleness by Father Mulcahy. The friendships that Alan formed on MASH turned out to be immensely meaningful to him. These characters were more than simply co-workers when the show concluded in 1983 following 11 seasons and 251 episodes. Members of the same family. As Alan encountered fresh difficulties in his private life, these enduring connections would become increasingly vital. After MASH finished in 1983, Alan Alda could have easily retired and enjoyed life to the fullest. He was offered roles in other television shows and movies after the show made him renowned and wealthy. But Alan had no intention of stopping his work. He possessed an abundance of tales to share and personas to embody. Alan later enjoyed a fruitful acting and producing career. He continued to perform in other people's films while simultaneously writing and directing numerous features, such as The Four Seasons and Sweet Liberty. Frequently took on the role of witty, intelligent people who were quite similar to Hawkeye Pierce. Still, Alan will always be grateful to MASH and his co-workers from the show. Many of his former co-stars remained in touch with him, and he was happy to discuss the show whenever asked. He felt proud of MASH because he knew it was the most significant thing he had ever done. After the show ended, Alan started to be more forthcoming about the show's true nature in the years that followed. I enjoy working on MASH. He discussed the issues of working with certain co-stars, the demands of being the lead of a popular show, and the creative obstacles of maintaining the show's appeal and novelty for 11 years. Additionally, Alan started to discuss the profound impact the show had on his life. He was simply another actor with big Hollywood dreams before MASH. In addition to making him famous, the show gave him a voice to advocate for causes close to his heart, such as social justice, peace, and the value of treating others with dignity and compassion. Alan Alda's announcement of a Parkinson's disease diagnosis in 2018 stunned his followers. Actually, he decided to come out about his condition after 3 years of living with it. Many were taken aback by the diagnosis because Alan usually gave the impression of being in good health and full of energy. In addition to sharing his childhood experience with polio, Alda discussed how he overcame the diagnosis of Parkinson's disease by engaging in physical activity, and how playing out his aspirations helped him come to terms with the disease. Alan made an intriguing discovery about his Parkinson's disease diagnosis. A series of intense dreams had begun in which he would physically perform the scenes. His wife Arlene saw him thrashing about in his sleep, and on occasion even attempting to punch or run. When Alan he chose to get tested after reading an article that mentioned this could be an early indicator of Parkinson's disease. Although Alan's diagnosis was frightening, he chose to confront it directly. In an effort to control his symptoms, he began to exercise more, eat healthier, and collaborate with medical professionals. He also made the decision to be transparent about his health situation in the hopes that it might assist others going through the same thing. Alan has found living with Parkinson's to be a difficult task. Even things like writing his name or tying his shoes, which he used to do automatically, now need more thought. But he has tackled this obstacle with the same wit, passion, and intelligence that he has tackled every other problem in his life. Alan is now very much involved in raising awareness and funding for Parkinson's disease. He has been quite forthcoming about his illness in interviews and has done his part to help fund studies that could lead to a cure or at least better treatments. His message is that a diagnosis of Parkinson's disease does not spell the end of a person's life. At the same time as he manages this critical health, Alan's health does not prevent him from thinking back on his career and sharing fresh perspectives on his time on MASH. Alan has recently revealed additional details about his time on MASH in interviews and reunion specials, where he has reflected on and recounted memories from his time there. A longtime friend of Joy Behar's, Alan, is fighting Parkinson's disease, In April 2024, Behar said that the two of them still frequently dine out. Alan is witty and smart at 89 years of age. He still works when he can and is happy to chat with fans and reporters about MASH. The difficulties of filming the show and collaborating with his co-stars have been more openly discussed in his recent interviews than in the past. Alan has shared some fascinating insights regarding his experience on MASH, one of the most notable being the amount he learned about leadership. He had to master the art of working as the show's star in a wide variety of egos and personalities. While some of his co-stars were a breeze to collaborate with, others proved to be more challenging. He needed practice being both rigid and accommodating. Alan has also discussed how his perspective on conflict and war was influenced by the show. The Vietnam War was the true focus of MASH, even though it took place during the Korean War. While filming the show was underway, the creators of the show, including Alan, were attempting to convey a profound message regarding the importance of human life and the price of war. In order to read the scene with him on the podcast, Alda enlisted the help of actor and Marine Corps veteran Mike Farrell. It had been 40 years since the two guys had last worked together as their legendary roles. Alan and Mike Farrell's ongoing friendship is one of the most heartwarming recent events. A new MASH scenario composed by AI was performed by the two men recently as part of a collaborative initiative. The fact that they reprised their roles after more than 4 decades demonstrated how much they still loved the show and how close they remained as friends. As for Alan, he has been forthright about his mistakes. Some of his co-stars, particularly Gary Berghoff, he wished he had treated with more patience. He now realizes that Gary's inability to accomplish his job was due to his coping with personal issues. Alan now regrets not being more patient. Something constructive rather than giving in to frustration. The knowledge that comes with age and experience is on full display in Alan's thoughts, which demonstrate his remarkable growth and transformation since his days at MASH. When Alan Alda thinks back on his career, he realizes that playing Hawkeye Pierce will be the role that people remember him by. Actors may feel pressured to maintain a constant relationship with their roles. Yet Alan has never shied away from it. Hawkeye and what MASH achieved are both things of which he is proud. Hawkeye Pierce stood out from the crowd because he possessed a unique blend of humor and strong moral principles. He had a great sense of humor and genuinely wanted to do the right thing. He was positioned, stuck up for his principles, no matter how challenging or controversial they were. Both Alan Alda and his most renowned character possessed these traits. The show MASH was much more than that. It was a program that prompted viewers to reflect on profound ideas like friendship, loyalty, and the meaning of war. A decent human being. Multiple Emmys and a Peabody Award for Outstanding Broadcasting were among the many accolades bestowed upon the program. On February 28, 1983, more than 105 million viewers tuned in to see the last episode of MASH. At the top of the ratings, of television episodes ever aired in the United States, a distinction that persisted for an extensive period. The episode's comedic and tragic undertones stem from the protagonists' farewells to one another and the conflict that had united them. Alan has stated that his role as Hawkeye Pierce provided him with invaluable life and self-discovery lessons. The protagonist's dedication to serving others and Alan's actions outside of the show were shaped by his commitment to doing the right thing. He became increasingly active in social and political movements, hoping to leverage his celebrity to effect positive change. Playing Hawkeye taught Alan valuable life lessons that have been important in managing his Parkinson's disease. Alan, true to himself, has tackled this obstacle with wit, bravery, with a dogged persistence. He is determined not to allow his illness restrict his abilities. The significance of Alan's legacy is growing as he ages and faces health problems. After decades of conjecture, The reality behind Alan Alda's involvement with the MASH set is more nuanced than the majority of fans were led to believe. Indeed, there were moments when he was overbearing and demanding. His co-stars did, in fact, find him challenging to collaborate with. And he was dead set on giving weighty topics the attention they merited and putting on the greatest show imaginable. Those on the crew who got along with Alan said he was brilliant, hilarious, and totally dedicated to his work. He never slacked on preparation, maintained a high level of professionalism, and was always down to lend a hand to his fellow performers. Although he occasionally caused friction, his relentless pursuit of excellence ultimately led to superior television. His perfectionist streak and firm beliefs about how things ought to be done frequently caused friction among the cast members, who had issues with Alan. His lack of empathy and inability to hear others out made him seem overbearing to others. The fact that he stole the show from the ensemble members was something that many people disliked. Most likely, the truth lies somewhere in the center. As a person, Alan Alda has strengths and shortcomings, similar to those of all individuals. As his duties as the show's writer, director, and de facto leader increased, he found himself juggling multiple roles simultaneously. He was competent at times and woefully inadequate at others when faced with such obstacles. Alan clearly had a profound affection for and MASH and all the other contributors. The majority of the time, his desire for the show to reach its full potential was the driving force behind his disagreements with his co-stars. He was cognizant of the fact that the show may sway the opinions of millions of viewers on weighty topics. All of Alan's MASH co-workers. Keep in mind that he was an enthusiastic, bright, and dedicated achiever. He may have been difficult to collaborate with at times, but his intentions were always good. And that was the most important thing at the end. Alan Alda's openness about his time on MASH gives us a rare glimpse into the life of a television celebrity. Behind all the joy and celebration, there are actual people who are going through tough times. Through his experiences, we get a glimpse into the complicated reality of balancing the demands of a popular show with your own humanity and relationships. We can't help but question the extent to which they are performers can genuinely maintain while enduring the immense strain of network television and meeting the expectations of millions of viewers. Personalities clashed, creative conflicts arose, and the basic difficulty of balancing individual artistic vision with collective narrative played out on the MASH set. Every part of production, from screenplay choices to cast chemistry, was affected by Alan's increasing influence on the show. Mike Farrell was one among many who welcomed this change. He met a creative soulmate and collaborator in Alan. In what was initially planned as an ensemble piece, several actors, such as McLean Stevenson, Wayne Rogers, and Gary Berghoff, felt overshadowed or underappreciated. One thing that stands out about Alan's reflections is his readiness to admit when he's wrong and his flaws. As we progress, his improvement in self-awareness and guilt over not being more empathetic with Gary Berghoff throughout his personal troubles is admirable in a profession where ego and self-justification are commonplace. Age and the perspective that a terminal sickness might offer are echoes in this. He now sees his previous relationships and decisions through a different prism, thanks to his Parkinson's diagnosis. Being the public face of a show with such cultural significance must have been incredibly stressful. During a time of great upheaval in American history, MASH offered commentary on morality, war, and the human condition. Alan took full ownership of this obligation, though there was a price to pay for that dedication. While his unwavering beliefs and obsession with perfection served the show's larger goal, they occasionally turned off viewers who were content to perform their tasks without worrying about their impact on society. True connections may be formed despite the challenges and tensions experienced during MASH, as shown by the enduring friendships that formed, especially with Mike Farrell. Their most recent joint effort, reviving MASH discourse after 40 years, implies that the relationships formed in that made-up Korean War hospital lasted longer than the short-lived conflicts experienced during filming. It serves as a gentle reminder that the strongest partnerships are the ones that can endure the ups and downs of the working world together. Just as Alan is now bringing an open and vulnerable perspective to his thoughts on MASH, his decision to be upfront about his Parkinson's diagnosis reflects that. Similar to how Hawkeye Pierce, Alan Alda has always been fearless in addressing weighty topics like war and morality, and he's also not afraid to face the facts about getting older and being sick. As he did during his time at MASH, he is currently using his platform to address serious topics, such as his advocacy for Parkinson's research and his candid comments about living with the condition. These discoveries paint a picture of an artist who may have been overly dedicated, overly serious, and overly conscious of his effect, leading him or others around him astray. However, it also depicts someone who saw the potential of television as a medium for social commentary and introspection, rather than only as a source of amusement. Alan Alda has been around long enough to witness the enduring popularity of his MASH roles among viewers of all ages. A fuller image of what it was truly like to make one of the best shows in television history has emerged from his candid thoughts on the set's difficulties and disputes. Alan Alda's portrayal of Hawkeye Pierce on MASH has inspired and entertained audiences worldwide, and the show itself has endured through all of its problems to become a television masterpiece. Think there was a better method to accomplish the same artistic goals? Or do you think the show's impact and quality justified his demanding approach? Leave a comment with your ideas.